I've been so full of anger. I've had the most horrible thoughts lately.
I was walking my boyfriend's dogs a month or so ago on some trails near the beach. His dogs are both mutts. One is a husky chow other, and one is a pit bull hippo, I think. They're both sweet, loving, social, and completely chill. This particular trail leads down to an estuary that starts in a state park, but there are only 2 parking spots at the trailhead, so it's nearly always deserted when I'm there. There's basically a maintained trail that goes to the estuary, and then there's an unofficial trail that loops off the actual trail. It's hard to spot and largely overgrown, but I can tell I'm not the only one who uses it. I was walking the dogs on the main trail and just getting to the estuary when we typically stop to watch the birds for a bit. One of the dogs, the husky, started this low growl and puffed a full mohawk. We live in an area with cougar and bears, so that's the first place my mind went. I drew my pistol. I'm a redneck and a hunter, and I'm always usually carrying. I did it just in case, and started backing up the trail. I'd only taken a few steps, dragging the husky, still growling scarily, away from everything. The pit was still clueless and was watching a squirrel dopily, when a creepy motherfucker, henceforth known as CMF, stepped out from behind a tree. He wasn't scary looking, just the typical REI outdoorsy looking type that frequent the craft breweries on every corner here in Washington. He was maybe in his late 40s, early 50s, and the tree he was behind wasn't huge. He would have had to position himself deliberately to hide behind it when I was approaching. He started walking towards me, smiling at the growling and pissed-off dog like it was a bunny rabbit, and talking to him in a soothing voice, with his hand out like he was going to pet him. The dog barked loudly and continued to growl in an unfamiliar and terrifying way. At this moment, my pit finally got her act together and looked away from her new squirrel friend. She took in the scene and got in between the guy and me immediately. She didn't puff or growl. I honestly don't know if she knows how. She's such a teddy bear. But her tail was out at a weird angle, and she was baring her teeth at him. Now, I don't know if it was her threatening looks or if the CMF had a complete glimpse of my gun that I was holding down by my side, but he suddenly dropped the amiable hiker facade and gave me this look that just made my skin crawl. It was pure evil. He didn't move a step after that, and didn't say anything else. It was creepy AF. I said something along the lines of, "Don't fucking come near me," and we left quickly. This time I made sure he saw my gun as I turned around. When I got to the part of the trail that loops off, I took it after checking to see if CMF was in sight. The dogs were still super tense and on alert, and I eventually slowed down so I could listen, and also because I'm a fat ass and was about to pass out from the exertion. The loop meanders wide around the trail and is probably a quarter of a mile or so longer than the main path, which itself is maybe about a mile. When I was nearing the point that the loop hit the main trail again, my good boy started to growl again. It was super low, so thankfully the creeper didn't hear it. He was on the main trail heading back towards the estuary. As soon as he was out of sight, we booked it up the last 100 yards or so of trail to the trailhead. The Subaru I had parked next to had its hatch open. It hadn't been open when I had gotten there. I tried to see the license plate, but couldn't since it was on the hatch, and I wasn't willing to take an extra second to pull it down and look. I basically threw my pit into the back of my Jeep. She's 90 pounds with the physique of a small hippo, as previously noted, so I'm pretty proud that I was able to do that. My other dog hopped up with her. I jumped in and took off, and right when I turned onto the road, my pit barked. That is the first and only time in my 6 months of knowing her that she has ever barked. My best guess of what happened is that as soon as I was out of sight, CMF started to follow me and didn't know about the other trail. He got to the trailhead ahead of me since his trail was shorter and saw my Jeep was still there. He opened his hatch for reasons that just couldn't have been good and headed back down the path to find me. When he heard my door close, he raced back to the trailhead where my very, very good girl told him what she thought of him. I swear, that bark sounded like the combination of all the dirtiest swear words I know, and several I don't. It was off-season, so the state park was barely manned, if at all, by rangers. As soon as I got back to the road where there is a cell signal, I called my brother, who's a cop in the town that the park borders. He wasn't on shift, and it took a while for anyone to get out there, and by the time they did, CMF was gone. CMF, you better hope we don't meet again. And if you ever attempt that bullshit with another woman, may she also have a scary dog and a full-size pistol to show you the error in your ways. My stepdogs were trying to protect me, but inadvertently protected you by giving me a way to get away without having to resort to drastic measures. With or without the dogs, you will not get away unscathed next time. So for your sake, let's not meet. I used to work third shift at a small 44-bed nursing home. We were supposed to be in an assisted living facility for people who were cognizant, yet unable to live on their own, and a rehabilitation center for those recovering from surgery or stroke. In reality, we were mainly taking care of elderly residents with Alzheimer's and dementia. Needless to say, people passed there. My duties were fairly simple. Come in, see to any residents who weren't already in bed, check the ones who were in bed, and then make rounds every 2 hours to make sure everyone was clean and still breathing. It's been almost 7 years since I worked there, so I don't remember the order in which these events happened. I'm just going to list them by order of severity. Every so often, I would come into work super tired from staying up too late, so after each of my rounds, I would set my phone alarm for an hour and a half and take a nap in one of the recliners. Next thing I knew, there was a loud whap, like someone dropping a heavy hardback book on the floor, but right next to my ear, causing me to jump up and be awake. I would look around and see that no one was there before rushing down the hall to check to see if any of my residents were okay, which they always were. After that, I'd start my rounds. This happened at least 2 times that I remember, and I always woke up about 1 to 2 minutes before my alarm was supposed to go off. The second wasn't really an event per se. It was just something that one of the residents said to me that kind of creeped me out. One night, when I put one of my residents, a sweet old lady named Mrs. Lindsay, to bed, she looked at me with a smile and said, "You have the most beautiful angel watching over you," or behind you. I can't remember exactly what she said. Mrs. Lindsay did have dementia, but she was cognizant enough to recognize people and sometimes circumstances that happened around her, so hearing her say something like that was a little bit more than just creepy. The last one is one that still gives me chills and makes me a little paranoid just thinking about it even today. Most of the rooms were just rectangles with one bed on each end, a wardrobe at the foot of each bed for residents' clothing, and a small end table beside the bed for smaller effects and our gloves and wipes. There were windows on the wall opposite the door from the hall, and I was in the middle of one of my rounds when I entered one of the rooms to check on the residents. As I was digging through the end tables looking for gloves, I started to feel the muscles in my neck, shoulders, and back start to tense up. I felt like a weight had just settled across my shoulders, and what's more, it felt like there was something huge directly behind me. By huge, I mean it felt like there was something at least 8 feet tall. I'm 6 feet tall, but whatever this was, felt like it was standing over me, looking down on top of me. I couldn't move. I could hardly blink. All I could do was stare straight ahead at the windows. The only thing I could think was, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. But then, as suddenly as it had started, it was gone, and I could move again. When I turned around, all that behind me was a jerry chair and a wheelchair. I don't know how long the feeling lasted, and I didn't think to check the time. It felt like an hour, but couldn't have been more than a few minutes. I don't remember if there were any sounds or anything like that, just a huge, imposing pressure right behind me. As for my policy on determining what I was thinking about beforehand, I was essentially on autopilot mode. My body was working, while my brain was basically off, so I wasn't thinking about anything, just doing my thing. When this happened, it snapped me fully alert and aware. This is the reason I never keep my back to anything open behind me longer than I have to, as I don't like the idea of something like that coming up behind me again. The funny thing is that the room I was in at the time was Mrs. Lindsay's. For some reason, I didn't realize that until just a few months ago, though I'm pretty sure it doesn't correlate with anything that she ever said, but nothing about that encounter seemed very angelic to me.